Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Subhanalladhi hadana lihada wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allahu laqad ja'at rusulu Rabbana bilhaq. Qalu subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yufawwidu amri ila Allah basirun bil 'ibad. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذي أذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone, and welcome back to our Quran sessions. We've had a long break, and it's really important that just like the natural world takes time to rejuvenate, hibernate, rest, and relax, that we as human beings also give ourselves this time to go inwards and reflect and try to tap into the inner wisdoms that come through the assimilation of outer stimuli. So it's very important that whatever we learn, whatever we read, whatever we absorb from the outer world, that just like the food gets digested and becomes a part of our system, this risk of knowledge, this sustenance of knowledge that comes from the outer world also has to make its way into our beings. And that is why scholars say that there isn't really any true knowledge on the outside world, it's always on the inside, because we can go and give formulae on calculus to little kids and that knowledge will mean nothing to them because it hasn't been assimilated into their wisdom, their knowledge, their inner um, work. So what we want to do now is that understand that the waiting time we've been talking about is extremely essential to human growth. The time to just unwind and be still, which becomes extremely difficult for us in this world where everything is so fast, everything is fast paced, everything is about immediate gratification, and we want results really soon. So now what we're gonna move forward into our journey into Surah Fatiha. I want to say a few closing remarks for the ayat that we've been on for so many weeks now, Ar-Rahman and Rahim. Let me just recite Surah Fatiha and then we will go to the next ayat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. So we did till Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, and today I would like to hop on to Maliki Yawmiddin. And to close my, the closing remarks that I want to say on Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim that I feel inspired to um, is, did someone say anything? Okay, I'm just gonna mute. Um, is um, is that just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all merciful and He is providing risk on the outside for all of us, which we understand through His name Ar Rahman. All the outer facilitations, all the outer ni'mah, the blessings, the gifts that we get, the same way He is the provider for the inner sustenance as well. all right, and that is denoted by Ar-Rahim, and that is why we said that Ar-Rahim is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is about a special mercy that is gifted to those who uh, for those who open their heart. I'm just gonna set my meeting settings so that um, we don't have to keep muting people. Okay, we're done. All right. Um, I also want to thank all of you who have made these classes possible and you have contributed in any way by participating and otherwise. There's a very special place for you all in my heart. I know it just came off tangent, but I just felt like saying that. So I'm going to share my screen now and wanted to go to the next um, ayat. And I have personally struggled with understanding the next ayat, Maliki Yawmiddin, because as you all know, our focus has been to understand the Quran in the present moment. And Maliki Yawmiddin is usually translated to us as something that is done in the future, right? It is done as something which is okay, the day of resurrection will come, the day of judgment will come, and Allah is the master of that day. Now, in the present moment, right now, mystics would say that your day of judgment is happening right now. Your day of judgment is happening right now. How do we understand Maliki Yawmiddin in the present moment when all our lives we've been told that it's an event, a particular event that will happen in the future? So, if we look at the different ways of understanding these words, we will analyze these words Malik, Yawm, and Deen, three words. And Malik is, of course, a name of God. So we're gonna look at that, and we're gonna look at Deen, and we're gonna look at Yawm. What are these different words, and how do they represent a reality to us in this moment right now? And what our aim is always is that whenever we contemplate on a particular ayat of the Quran, that it should create a sudden transformation within us right now in this moment. How can I go on the Janamaz and every time I say Maliki Yawmiddin in Surah Fatiha, that it creates a shift in the way I'm doing life, a shift in the way I'm thinking. So let's begin. The word Malik means to rule, command, reign, be capable, to control, authority, king, and kingdom. And that kind of shows that Malik, even in our own native languages, in Urdu, we understand Malik is somebody who's the master, who's the ruler, who's the one who has things under his control, who decides, who takes the decisions, right? And Yom is translated as day, era, time, period of time, accident, event. And one more really interesting meaning that I saw for Yom is rising of the sun till it's resting. So I think what this meaning denotes is Yom would then mean the time of the day. The duration the sun was out and then the sun went. So that would count as a Yom. And that's why we use Yom as day. But I want to take you to a very profound understanding here for Yom. So a lot of the scholars will say that Yom is not just a day, it is any period of time. It is any moment of the day. It is any even a portion of um, the time as we know it. It can be any minuscule fraction of that time as well. So Maliki Yawmiddin is when God decides um, the happenings of that moment. So far, that is what we're understanding, that he's the master of the moment, right? And then what does Deen mean? So now different meanings of the word Deen, I've shown it here in front of you. Deen means religion, elevated, noble, rank, condition, state. And deen also means to be indebted, okay, become indebted, in debt, contract a debt, become habituated and accustomed to something, death, because it is a debt everyone must pay, and a way or a course of manner or conduct or acting. So we're basically saying that the master of the day of something happening, the master is the moment when a course of events is taking place. He is the one who is overlooking the course and the manner and the conduct of a particular moment and how it is unfolding. And now I want to, before I go back to this point over here, the moment of how things unfold, I want to take our attentions to this word in debt, contracting a debt, right? So Sheikh Fadlallah Hairi has something very interesting to say here. So I'm going to share that right now. Master of the Day of Judgment. Malik means owner or master. We come from the owner. We own nothing, but are all owned. We are owned. We're the servants. We're the slaves. Yawm ad-Din, the day of the Deen. Yawm is not only a day but also a span of time. Deen, life transaction finds its roots in dana, to owe, to be indebted. So to be indebted to or to owe something. It is the debt of man to want to recognize reality. It is incumbent upon every one of us to know how to pay the debt upon us. The deen with Allah is Islam. It is a life transaction. Our way of behaving towards ourselves and towards others is deen. It is the way of correct transaction. But if you cannot discipline yourself, you cannot be of any use to anybody else. If interaction is not at least two-dimensional, nothing will work. You will only accumulate more wealth and cultivate more attachment. Eventually, you will be toppled over. Therefore, you have to exercise yourself in order to discipline yourself. The inner discipline begins with the outer discipline. This is the meaning of deen. The outer is easier because if you yourself do not stop from overshooting the limits, someone else will. It is the inner that is more difficult. So we start with the outer in order to gain the inner meaning. We go from the gross to the subtle. So I hope the reading wasn't too monotonous. Sometimes, while we're reading, we lose our attention. So to put it back into perspective, um, the day or the moment for me in Yom is this moment right now. So right now is the moment, because if you look at this diagram, I have drawn the past, the present, and the future, right? And the past is something we cannot control anymore. It's already happened. And the present moment is the only moment that we can actually exercise our free will in. And then there is the future. But why I have written that it says illusion of the free will is because in this moment right now, we are exercising our free will, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Maliki Yawmiddin. So the only moment that we really have, which is real, is the present moment. And then Allah is saying, I am the master of the moment. So are we truly in a state of free will or not? That is what this ayat has always intrigued me into um, pondering, reflecting, contemplating. And I would invite all of you to also, um, just gonna check if the recording, yeah. I want to invite all of you to also ponder over this, that if right now, the present moment is really all we have, because we remember the past is gone, we don't have any control over it. Our physical body has no presence in the past, and our physical body has no presence in the future. The future hasn't happened. It's a hypothetical imagination. It's a thought. It's a fiction of our imagination. It's a moment in history that hasn't yet happened. In that moment, our body is not in the future. Our body only has its presence in this moment right now, and this moment is constantly on the go, it's constantly moving. So when we look at free will, we see that the only time I can actually exercise my thoughts, my decisions, in a very real way is in the present moment. And I think that this is my research, this is my insight, this is my humble opinion, in no way a finality to the work I'm sharing with you. And I invite all of you to question it. I invite all of you to think about it. These are my own insights which I'm sharing with you. That in saying Maliki Yawmiddin, we're actually talking about God being the master of the present moment. And what the mystics say is that the flow of life is going to happen the way it is willed. All right. Whatever is meant to happen on the outer world is going to happen in the will of God. It's already a part of the cause and effect. It's already part of the way it's supposed to go, the way the river is. A river is going to take its course, it's going to flow. That's how the outer world works. The free will we hold, and Dr. Wayne Dyer puts it really beautifully. He says the only free will we have in the present moment is, am I going to connect my intention to God? Am I going to connect to the higher power in this moment or not? So the events of the outer world are in the hands of God. And the only free will we actually have is the free will to connect to the higher source, to God, to clarify our intention. What is happening in the inner world is where we have that tiny opening of free will, which also lies only in the present moment. So, therefore, saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the master of the moment of what? So, we can say the word deen, and we can say that deen is the time of accountability, or the time when we settle our debts. So, every moment right now, what Sheikh Fadlullah said is that our debt is the self-realization. So in every moment, in every present moment, we are being provided an opportunity to settle our debt of self-realization, self-discovery, going inwards, connecting to the divine, setting our intention in this present moment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the master of this act. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the master of this connection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is overlooking and facilitating, and the king of that kingdom of my inner world, where I can connect and disconnect, and I can set my intention and I can set my intention, and we see that all the time. And today's lesson is very profound because it can have a very deep impact on our moment to moment transactions within. All right. So we said Maliki Yawmiddin, God decides when we experience the movement of being in his presence, the moment of being in his presence, and he decides the nature of this meeting. So in every present moment, the free will we have is whether I'm going to connect my intention to the higher being, the higher source, the universe, God, or not. And in this present moment, I understand that the master is my God. So I wanted to share that, how the word Yawm is about rising of the sun till it's resting, which means presence of the sun denotes the day. And Rumi says something really beautiful. He says, the one who is awake, the one who is more aware, the one who is yellow faced. So he's talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yellow face, which was also very metaphorical because Shamsuddin, his mentor, was also like an analogy of Shams, which is the sun. and sun is yellow faced. So he was able to experience presence of God and a mindfulness in the presence of his teacher, which happens to a lot of us who, not particularly me, but with a lot of us who have those teachers who vibrate on a very high energy, who are very connected. You suddenly feel a presence of peace, you feel a sense of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you feel rested. And in that present moment, you experience the face of God, you experience a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's really beautiful how the Yawm, the present moment, is about the day, the sun. And for Rumi, it is the face of God. And so it's about being in a state of wakefulness. And daytime, sun time, is a moment of wakefulness. And in that moment, the experience of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in Allah's hand. This is the point that I want to make. So we yearn inside within ourselves, and at times we're standing in salah and we're not feeling connected, and sometimes we are. And sometimes we feel this strong mm, sense of presence, and we'll be in tears when we're making dua, and we'll feel this beautiful aura and energy, and sometimes we don't. And the point here is, just yesterday or 2 days ago, a friend of mine, somebody uh, who was seeking advice, was very upset and messaged me saying that I've gone really far from God and I can't pray, and I'm feeling really disconnected and I'm gonna get lost and I'm feeling really scared, but I don't know how to do this. I'm really feeling disconnected. And we have to understand that, imagine the conflict this person is coming to me with. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because so many of us will go through this and we will put ourselves in a place of shame and guilt. And what I want to say is that just observe the conflict this person is going through. That at one point they really want to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're feeling worried and they're feeling lost and they're feeling scared. And on the other hand, they're saying, I'm not able to do my salah, I'm not able to pray, I'm not able to connect. And just within one being, one human being, two opposing states can be seen. And we are in that state of kabad. Remember, we are in that state of conflict and hardship all the time. And it's really important to address it because we go through it so often. We don't feel like praying namaz sometimes. We don't feel like praying Quran sometimes. And what do is that we put ourselves into a place of shame and guilt. And we feel disconnected. Now let's take it forward. Okay, she's not able to pray. Now that's an ibadat, that's a worship. Take it forward and take it in the sense of human service. I'm not able to share something sometimes. I'm not able to give love sometimes. I'm not able to be unconditionally caring sometimes. It's a high, noble, godly quality that, we hear that, being good and kind to people who are good and kind is fine, but the real nobility lies in being good and kind to those who aren't being good and kind to you, who aren't being nice to you. And in those moments of guilt tripping, of feeling bad and of feeling ashamed of ourselves, that I'm not able to share, I'm not able to be generous, I'm not able to accept, I'm not able to love, all of these states are creating this conflict and guilt within us, because for us that is good and not being able to do that is bad, and now I'm a bad person and how can I not do that. And then we go into a whole cycle of shaming ourselves, making ourselves bad, and then we start acting like we're bad people. We live a very apologetic, we live very apologetic moments of feeling like we're not worthy, we don't deserve God's love, we're not good people, simply because I'm not able to come up to that high noble status in my own eyes. And we forget that we're not God, and we forget that we're human. if we were able to maintain that kind of high noble status at all times, we would be God, because God is the only one who's perfect. So, this moment of not being able to maintain that high level of expectation from ourselves is another opportunity to humble ourselves, is another opportunity to surrender and say that all creation is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is in Allah's hands. Not a leaf falls without His permission. So, this state of what I'm going through is in essence also from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you see, as a human being, I want to do good. A part of me wants to be generous. A part of me wants to let go. A part of me wants to forgive. A part of me wants to be loving and care. I want to, but I can't. So that can't is something that I'm feeling out of control. And when I'm feeling out of control, human beings don't like to be out of control. We like to have everything under control. When that goes out of control, I feel inadequate. I feel not good enough. And then I go into that spiral of guilt and shame. But in that moment, realizing that the soul goes through states of contraction and expansion. The soul and the life of a human being will go through a journey where there is expansion and there is contraction. And then there are moments when I'm not able to do something. And then there are moments I am able to do something. And so, what we do in that moment of feeling this inability to be the best that we have expected ourselves to be, for example, you have to go and interact with your teenage child, and you made the intention that I'm not going to scream, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be nice, da da da. And then you go and there you go. Some buttons are pushed and you lose it. And then there's just a moment after you're just filled with regret, and you're like, again, I have not been able to control my emotions. I got angry, da, da, da. And we feel let down by our own selves. So remembering that there is a desire and there's a striving, and then there will be moments of contraction and moments of expansion. And in that moment, in that very moment where we feel disconnected, let down, not good enough, if we can take a pause and remember that He is Malik Yawmiddin, He is the master of that moment of the realization, the sensibility of being present and mindful. He is truly the master. In the end, it is Him. And my ability to even connect to Him is in His hands. And so the contraction I am feeling, this disconnection that I'm feeling, this inability to do good that I'm feeling, as long as I am aware, as long as I can see that there is a want and a desire, but I'm not able to, it's from Him, and it's a moment of great humility. If we really see it with sincerity. Now, why this sounds quite counterintuitive to the way we've been conditioned is because we've always been told to do self reprimand, like reprimand your nafs and scolding yourself and punishing yourself and saying that yes, you are a bad nafs and you need to get better, and you're doing guna and you need to get better and all of that. What I've realized, and this is just my humble opinion, is that we're evolving as human beings. And a lot of us, especially the people here in this class, are the people who are really striving to purify their souls and intentions and consciousness. We don't deliberately want to be bad people. There's no malice. There's no intentional, aggression towards another person. There's no deliberate evilness. In fact, we actually have a very conscious and very um, deliberate effort to not only clarify our intentions, but we also are trying to be good people. and we struggle, and sometimes we go ahead of ourselves and we want to reach levels where we can't, and we get disappointed. So a person who's coming with that kind of sincerity of heart, a person who is coming with that kind of real desire to, move from the gross to the subtle, like Sheikh Fadlallah said, that we're striving to discipline ourselves, so we move from the outer to the inner. So, on the outer world, we were brought up in the madrasa, and we were taught about rights and wrongs and guna and savab, and all of that, and okay, that's really good. But now we're going to the subtle levels of the states within ourselves. Now we want to be aware of the moments within me. And every moment is a moment of accountability. So what is accountability? Day of judgment. Day of judgment is the day when we will be held accountable for what we did. But the moment of accountability for the awakened soul, remember, for the awakened soul, everything is in the present moment. It's not in the future. So the awakened soul is in a state of accountability right here, right now. And in that moment, which can be a moment of accountability, but also a moment of resurrection. So, day of judgment is also the day of resurrection, Yawm ad-Din. Yawm ad-Din is the moment where your deen, your discipline comes alive. You settle your debts of self-realization. That's a responsibility you have. You awaken to that moment, and you can be resurrected in that moment from your slumber, from your old self to the new self. Any moment can become Yawmuddin, and any moment can become Laylatul Qadr, the moment of your destiny. You can have that change and shift and resurrection from the dead to the living in that moment. If I have the ayat on me, I would like to read it out. Okay, so yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 28, كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. How can you deny Allah? You were lifeless and He gave you life. Then He will cause you to die, again bring you to life, and then to Him you will be returned. So this ayat is really beautiful, because within this moment, within this moment of accountability, within this moment of resurrection, within this moment of judgment, there are moments of life, there are moments of death, there are moments of lifelessness, and there are moments of return. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that He is the master. He is the true master. He is the one who will decide the course of the river. The only free will we have is to go within and check ourselves if we're in the right place with our intentions, if we're in the right place with our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even in that, if I find myself unable to connect, even in that, if I'm finding the lack of clarity, if I'm finding inability, confusion, noise in my mind, and I'm not able to, we have to understand that even that chaos is coming with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is all in His will, it is all within His kingdom, it is all within His sphere of decision making. And all we can do, the only thing that we can really do, is surrender. So I'm going to read out a few of the texts that I've collected on Malik Yawmiddin. And I want to share something before we go into that um, while we are talking about having this accountability with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of heaven and hell, remember that we perceive the day of judgment as the moment when, we will be given the deeds in our right hand or the left hand. And then, we will be given hell or heaven. And from the beginning of our classes, we've been talking about understanding the inner hell and the inner heaven, and the intrinsic value of a good deed. The intrinsic value of a good deed is the inner state you achieve, or I achieve, or we achieve in that moment. Within a moment, what is a sense of peace? What will bring sense of peace within me will decide my heaven in this moment, and what will create hellishness within me in this moment. And again, after going through circles and cycles of spiritual turmoil, pain, undecisiveness, chaos, whatever, in my humble opinion, a salam, the salamti, the peace of every moment, lies in al-Islam wa huwa taslim. So peace and salam are the very words which are used for taslim, which is surrender. And if in any moment, whether it's a moment of outer turmoil or an inner turmoil, and if in any moment where there is either darkness within me or darkness outside of me, if I can come to a state of surrender and I say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I understand that I really am powerless. If there is nothing other than you, then in this moment right now, there is nothing that can happen without your will. And so my inner darkness, if whether we feel like we've committed a sin or we've wronged someone, or we've been unforgiving, or we've done injustice to somebody, even in that moment, if we can understand that the states of contraction also come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we surrender, we go into a state of taslim, it brings peace, which is the heaven. And if we don't surrender, and if we ruminate in the awful things we've said already, which we regret, or if we ruminate with, um, some bad decision we took, or regrets, or shaming ourselves, or going into our heads and creating a dark space for ourselves just because we're addicted, you know excuse me, we're as human beings, we're addicted to um, going into pathways in our brain, mentally, where we go into dark places, and it becomes a spiral sometimes, and it's very difficult to get out of it. And really, the most therapeutic, the most liberating, and the most beautiful thing that we can do, if Allah allows, even in that moment, because like we're saying, He's the master of the moment of accountability. If we keep sincerely striving towards Him, if we keep on a very on a very brainy level, on a very intellectual level, on a very robotic and a mechanical level, even if we keep striving towards Him and we keep seeking Him and yearning for His connection, but when we don't know how to do it, in that moment, if we can say that this moment of contraction, of darkness, has also been endowed because from you, and Allah, I surrender that this is from you. Okay, I accept it. I accept my lowliness. I accept my inability. I accept my darkness. I accept all parts of me which I find loathsome right now. I accept all the parts of me that I find disgusting and not good enough and despicable right now. I accept. I accept because all of this comes from you. And there is a profound opening in that surrender. There is a doorway, there's a pathway that opens, which is quite magical, because the minute we surrender, we are actually letting go of the ego. And we know that ego works in very sneaky, very indirect, very unperceivable ways. Sometimes it's a very sneaky business to recognize the ego. But in the moment when the servant of God surrenders in this way, There's a humility to understanding that I'm imperfect and God is the only perfect one. He is the master and I am the servant and I'm the slave. So if you go to the word Malik, he's the one who rules, he's the one who commands, he's the capable one, he's the one who controls, he has the authority, he is the king and his is the kingdom. So for us to awaken to our moment of accountability is to truly surrender to his kingdom and command. And that would mean that I totally surrender myself in whatever state I'm in. And it's not easy because there's a clinging, there's a attachment within us, um, to shaming ourselves. Because when we shame ourselves and when we feel bad about ourselves, it's somehow us justifying the fact that I deserve to live because I don't deserve good things because I'm a bad person. But if I punish myself, then maybe I'll become worthy. I did something wrong and now I need to punish myself. And the way I will punish myself is by making myself feel bad about all of this, because that's how a lot of us are brought up, even as children, right? To be made to feel guilty, to be shamed for it. And I'm not saying that all of that is entirely wrong, because I came across something very interesting recently, that there is a good shame, there's a good guilt, and then there's a toxic shame, and there's a toxic guilt. The good shame is the shame that enables me to understand I can't walk out of my house without clothes, things like that. And toxic shame is when unnecessarily I will shame myself. I will berate myself with negativity just because I feel I don't deserve good. Because in my eyes, I have fallen from the pedestal I had put myself on or the expectation I wanted to reach. In the same way, good guilt helps us to reform. Good guilt helps us to bring amendments within ourselves and see ourselves where we're falling short. But the toxic guilt is when we put ourselves in such a cycle of guilt that now I don't think I'm even capable of getting better. Now I don't even allow myself the permission that I can get better, I can get out of it, I do deserve good things in life. And remember, all the blessings, good things in life, Allah is deciding to give it to you. Who am I to say no to his decision? But in guilt, the toxic guilt and shame, I'd start doing that. I start denying the blessings and gifts I have. Um, for example, we've been talking about doing a lot of work into our beliefs. We have talked about the sins that we said that Imam Ali alayhi salam says in Dua Kumail that, oh Allah, forgive my sins that block blessings from reaching me, right? And we had said that a lot of these, the sins that personally I think Imam is referring to are my, my beliefs and my thoughts, which are preventing good things from coming. So for example, saying that, having a belief that I don't deserve abundance because the world is in a state of poverty, for example. So on a subconscious level, if I have that belief, then consciously I might be praying for wealth, but it won't reach me because I think that having wealth is a bad thing. Similarly, when we are working with ourselves and we are surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how is it that I'm going to not receive gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that, for example, um, I feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I don't deserve love because I think that I'm not generous enough, or I'm not loving enough, or I wasn't able to do a particular thing when I should have, etc., etc. So there's this a pile load of guilt within me. Now, as a result of that, I feel that perhaps I don't deserve a happy family, or I don't deserve to have a family because of XYZ reason. And what that is doing is that even though you may have a family, you may have people in your house, you're just blinded by that belief that I don't deserve it. And you're just going to keep repelling it, repelling it, repelling it, and not realizing that something was coming to you and you were not receiving it. The reason I say that is because um, a lot of times we are in our own bubbles, and when things come to us in a different packaging, we think that I don't, this is not what I expected from life, or this is not what I deserved in life. And due to my own conditioning, due to my own beliefs, due to my own guilt and shame, I reject a lot of things. I can't see them objectively. I create beliefs around those things, and I am not able to accept that in the flow of that river, whatever is coming in the will of God. So, my examples that I just gave you, I don't know if I was able to explain it clearly, but the point is that the clarity of understanding these things will come as soon as we surrender. Because in that moment of surrender, the attachment and the clingingness to self shaming, self loathing, self guilting, that breaks because it's a very strong egoic bonding. And when we surrender in that moment and we say that this darkness is also from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I accept and I surrender to it, and I will sit in it. I will sit in this moment of feeling disconnected in the hope that right now I am waiting. I'm in that waiting time. I'm going to sit and see where Allah takes me because I can't do it, right? I've tried and I've tried and I can't, and I don't feel like it. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to surrender and say, Allah, if this is what you've chosen for me in this moment, I surrender and I sit in it. And believe me that Allah opens this different pathway of understanding life, objectivity, and truly one can start hearing the voice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding us when we surrender. And the light comes through always, and we always remember to take evidence from our lives from before, that there have been times when I was in a state of contraction and Allah got me through. Allah got me out of it, and He can do it again. And subhanallah, that for me it's an observation that when we surrender, it's a very um, it's literally like a very mathematical process, like a cause and effect process in through observing the anatomy of how the ego and the soul work, that immediately in a state of surrender the path opens and light shines through. And if we just breathe through it and surrender, then Allah's wisdom shines through. It's just how we are made, that surrender always leads to wisdom, surrender always leads to then Him working through us, then Him shining through us, because lack of surrender is me becoming my own obstacle. And the minute we surrender, then His voice will become louder, and His work can happen through me as a conduit. And that's what we want. We say, Allah, don't leave me to myself, right? I will create destruction for myself. Don't leave me to myself. You be my hands, and you be my legs, and you be my voice. That can happen only when we surrender. And that is wisdom. That is letting the higher power work through us. And in Maliki Yawmiddin, in this prayer, which we make in Surah Fatiha, where every time we pray Salah, there is this profound message and profound reminder that you really think that you have things under control. You don't. It's all Him. You really don't have anything under control. You really don't have the power or the ability even to do anything. It's really Him. I have a few translations from different places, and uh, the translation for Malik over here is ownership is of two types. Etabari, humans cannot own anything except their souls, almost. And Hakiki, Allah is the real owner of everything. The real, even if you want to think that you can control, you really cannot. It's just physically and spiritually just not possible, because we cannot see that there is only him, right? We are lost in the physical world where we separate us from him. We think there is me, the servant, and then there's a God, but there's really in truth only him. So the true ownership and control only lies with him, and the only thing I can do is surrender. And then Yawm, period of time that changes from realm to realm. Time is when something changes and you measure it in that. The realms do not have veils. The veils are within us. So you see, we've been talking about the veils within us. We've been talking about that, and so Yom then becomes that moment of resurrection, moment of unveiling, moment of awakening, moment of presence, and moment of mindfulness. And Deen, from debt. Religion is our debt. On the day of judgment, we will be paying back our debts to Allah. He is Maliki Yawmiddin. So, of course, we will always read translations that talk about the future. And Allama Tabatabai in his Tafsir Mizan, he talks about the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, the master of the day of judgment. He says that there's a special ownership, okay? The world uh, thus connotes the idea of ownership. Ownership in our social structure is a special relationship of one thing with another, a relationship that allows the owner to do with what the owned thing is. So the owner will decide whatever he wants to do with the owned thing, right? It's his wishes. So we really don't have that control over what we wish to do with ourselves in a lot of these states. It's his wish. We're completely owned by him. We're completely his. And so when we say that this thing belongs to us, it shows that it has a special relationship with us that allows us to do with it as we wish. Had it not been for this relationship, we would not have had this authority over it. And we use it as we like, and Allah is going to decide the path for us. He is the master of the day of judgment. So we're just now ending our session, so I don't want to go into further details here. And inshallah, then we will continue with our discussion on Al Malik, and what a repetitive discussion from different sources does for me is that not only does it open the avenues of having a multidimensional understanding of a particular name of Allah, but also it kind of reinforces it into our psyche, and subconsciously we start to absorb the meaning and it starts to affect our daily life. So I'm going to end the session here. And as always, I would love some feedback from you all, what you thought, questions. I really hope that it has provoked some questions within you, because it really is a very difficult matter to sort out free will and destiny. So and I was hoping that it would really provoke us to think about how much free will we have in terms of our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So before I stop the recording, I would like to make a dua. We put our hands together as the humble slaves of the master, and we come to him. Ya Allah, we come to you as your slaves. We come to you in utter powerlessness and utter helplessness and not knowing anything. Moment to moment, we are nothing. We really don't understand any of this. There's this unknowing which is only for you to know, and we really don't know. anything really. The more we know, the more we realize how much we don't know, Ya Allah. And these are just really feeble efforts in our journey and striving. So, Ya Allah, just take it as an evidence that we are sincere, that we are really striving, that we are really trying to align ourselves with our purpose and intention. But in the end, Ya Allah, we hand ourselves, our souls, our intentions, our work, our thoughts, everything to you, Ya Allah. We hand it over to you. Oh Allah, take it where you want it to go. Oh Allah, take it wherever you feel best for us and you are. And Ya Allah, just we hand over ourselves to you. So make us reach you however you feel is correct and give us the strength of faith to stay steadfast, to stay connected, and to constantly remember you. The only free will we really have, the only thing we can really ever do is remember you. So Ya Allah, give us the tawfiq to remember you in every moment and in every fraction of a second. Ya Allah, let us not be mindless of you. Ameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let me see.